Everybody, how you doing? What'd you think of this episode? You're good. I love how the show really like makes you laugh one minute and then just really hits you hard the next. This is such a great one, and it's a good thing we have Debra Messing here, who won Golden Globe nominee. Let's bring her out here and really give her an applause. Come on out, Debra Messing.
Everyone.
Well, I think we have to talk about the Golden Globe nomination. That's amazing.
I'm over the moon. I did not expect it at all. I was asleep. I didn't set my alarm, and I was like, what? So it's lovely.
So I always picture phones just start ringing off the hook and craziness. How did you actually find out?
Yeah, my phone rang, and it was my publicist, and she was like, "You got nominated!"
No, is it? I don't know if it's the Globes or the Emmys, but you submit an episode or you submit episodes. How does that work?
No, it's just they watch the season, and that's it. No, the Emmys, you choose one that sort of you think that you want them to base it on.
Okay. So what are you gonna wear?
Oh, oh my God! I'm gonna start sweating.
No, we won't.
But the great piece of trivia is that over the years, Will and Grace has been nominated for 30 Golden Globe Awards and have won 0. 30. This is my 9th this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
let's make some noise and let's make this happen. Tweet at the HFPA and say yes. Oh my God, that's amazing. I didn't know that.
It's crazy, right?
Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, the episode everybody just watched, this is the kind of episode that you submit for Emmys and awards and things. It's so amazing. Tell me when you first got wind of this story. I don't know if it's something that you guys have talked about for a long time or if this was just when this episode came around.
Towards the beginning of the season, Max Mutchnick, one of the co-creators of the show, told me that they were going to write a Me Too episode for Grace. And I was thrilled because I just felt it made sense. It was obviously, it's an issue that is in the zeitgeist. It's like we're all finally talking about it. And it was like, oh, of course Grace has a story. And I thought it was a sort of wonderful opportunity because it's so crazy that we went away for 12 and a half years and came back, that people have a relationship with this character for so long that to all of a sudden reveal this secret, it's kind of a different thing than, just being introduced to a new character and hearing their story. So it was something that was very important to me. I really wanted to make sure that we, honored the voices of survivors and that we didn't shy away. And then, of course, it was just up to the writers to do the magic that they do in terms of just finding the balance, because it was such a scary thing to go that serious. And they'd be like, all right, how are they going to find that balance? And then craziness ensued.
Did you know early on that it would be a story with your father on the show, Robert Klein?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not know. I didn't know any of the details. And then it turned out that it is the story of one of our writers. It happened to her in that exact way. And her father passed before she was able to have this conversation. So this is the conversation she wished that she had. And I thought Robert Klein was extraordinary. And wasn't he?
So good.
And it was great because he and I, we already have a relationship because he played my dad on Mysteries of Laura, my last TV show. So we had already had this relationship built. And then when we found out that Alan Arkin, who was Grace's original dad, couldn't do the show. And so we were like, who's going to be her dad? And then we're like, well, can it be him? And so it all worked out.
And as much as the show throws a lot of physical comedy at all of you, a scene where you're just sitting at a table talking to your dad,
Yeah.
What are the challenges in that, especially when it's not something you do in every episode?
I savored it, to be honest, because the genre of a sitcom, the traditional sitcom, is that it's all musical. It's all about, there are a certain number of jokes that are within, a 2-minute span. There is a musicality to the writing of every scene, and after a while, you're just playing the music, and there's joy and there's challenge in that. But you don't have the ability just to sit and to let a moment land, because anytime a moment lands, that's cut out because you only have 22 minutes, and that's wasted space. So this time they were like, no, you guys get to sit and actually have that conversation. And I think that also was part of the power of the episode, whether or not viewers recognized it, but that rhythm of, wait a second, this is different. And I think it makes you listen in a different way.
Well, since we're in a room with a lot of actors, talk about how much work and time goes into a scene like that, or even an episode. I mean, I've been to tapings of your show, and you guys sometimes rip through scenes, like you're just so on, but I know a lot of work goes into that before. Talk about this particular episode, if there was more time, or how you guys kind of constructed that as actors.
The work is so fast. It's 4 days. It's a 4-day work week, essentially. And the first day we just get the script and we read it, and it's the first time the cast hears it. And so it was like, oh, this is that episode. Wow. All right, we're doing this in 5 days. Okay. And then the conversation is what feels like it needs tweaking. And so we have that conversation, and then the next day we come in and it's an entirely, like 40% of it has been rewritten. And then we sit down at the table and we read it out loud again. And then it's like, okay, great. Now this is working. This feels wonky. This feels like you don't need this anymore, but let's put it all on our feet. And so the day is just a matter of blocking it and just doing it cold. And then you do it in front of all of the writers. And then they're like, okay, go home. And then you come in the next day and 30% of it is rewritten again. And so in terms of this episode, I think I had a higher level of anxiety because it was so important to me that we got it right. And I think, much of, I would say 70% of it was there. And then just the build to when I get up and take my coat and it's like, I'm done, I'm not doing this. And then the reveal, that was the trickiest thing to figure out. And I was just really grateful because it really was a collaborative thing with the writers and really specifically with the woman writer. And it was written really clean. And I just feel like it needs to be messy. It needs to be a little messier. This is just too cerebral, and there just needs to be, and so they added a little bit more, and the energy lifted up a little bit more, and it was like, okay, that we got that feels right. And I think everyone was really nervous in a very different way that on show night, because then the next day you just come in and again you have maybe 15% of it is rewritten the day you're doing it. So you come in, you're like, okay, what are these lines? And then you're blocking it, and you're like, oh wow, okay, we're doing it. And the audience was there, and we did the scene, and the audience gasped audibly. And then they went silent, and then they all went up on their feet. And people were, and I looked out in the audience, and that had never happened in the history of the show. And the thing that really sort of shook me was I looked in the audience, and I would say 20% of the people were sobbing. And it was just, people saw themselves. And there was, a definite feeling of gratitude in the room, and it made us all feel very, very good to be like, okay, it resonated, it landed the way that we wanted it to land.
Was that after your last take, or did you have to do another one?
That was
Feeling
the
all
first
that?
take. That was the first take, and then we were like, okay, we got it, and then they came in and they adjusted a few of the comic moments with the waitress.
She was so
So
great.
awesome.
She
Wasn't
was
she
so
awesome?
good. She was.
I mean, literally when we did the table read and she started speaking, I was like, and I just looked around the table and I was like, what is going on? I was like, is she real? I was like, she's amazing. And she's amazing. And it was like, oh, of course, like that's exactly what we needed in that scene. It's like this like little quirk, and it's always just a matter of how many drops of that do we need in the scene, and then that's too much. We need to take 2 drops away, and and that's sort of how we make the soup.
It's amazing. Yeah, round of applause. It's amazing. When you are going through the different days before tape night, and you do get all these different lines, when do you actually start memorizing lines? When the majority of them may change. When do you get into all that?
It's funny because Eric is a robot. He reads a line and he remembers it, and it's infuriating. I mean, this is real anger. And every day we'll come in and we will read it out loud, and then all the writers would come down, and then all of a sudden he's there, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? What is your problem? And so, I learned a while ago when I was trying to learn it each night, because I'm neurotic and I get really nervous, and I'm like, I'm just going to learn it each night so that I feel comfortable. I was then not able to release it when it changed. And I kept hearing the rhythm of how it was written the day before, and even just the physicality of it. And I was like, you know what? I have got to literally do nothing until the night before. And so I learned 50 pages of dialogue the night before. And then we come in, and then they're like, oh, here are some more pages. And so you just have to know that you're coming in and there's going to be changes. But then the thing that's unique to Will and Grace that literally no other show does, while we're taping, we will do a scene once. And then the 11 writers will get together in a scrum, and you'll see them like, and we'll wait, and then they'll come and they'll be like, okay, everybody, and they'll be like, okay, cut that, here's your new line, here's your new line, here's your new line, you have another line here, cut this couplet, add this, go. And that's it, we go. We do it. They're like, say it out loud once. And we're like, okay, schmuck, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, you got it, go. And so often, I would say 20% of every episode that you see, they are lines coming out of our mouth for the first time ever. And then we finish that, and then they're like, great, okay, that new line we just gave you, cut that, here's another one. Cut that, here's another one. We're gonna cut the scene here, go. And that's what we do the whole night. And it really, there is a sense of, a feeling of improv to it that's really exciting, and you feel very alive. You also feel terrified. And so what we do now to sort of help ourselves is we let the audience know from the very beginning that we're gonna fuck up. And they're allowed to laugh at us. And so, inevitably it's always Sean, but it's always Sean. But inevitably, we'll in the very first scene we'll be like, blah, oh fuck. And the audience will be like, ah! And like, oh my God, they said that. And then, they'll see us joking and being like, yeah, good. Yeah, he's drunk, whatever, and we'll have a conversation with the audience, and that relieves all the tension, because otherwise the audience worries about you. And then they get tight and they're like, oh, please okay, get it. And then there's just no possibility for comedy at that point. And so it's crazy, but it's a lot of fun. It's challenging, especially getting older. 10 years later, holding on to it that quickly is I can definitely feel the difference.
Now, is this a Max and David thing, or is it a Jim Burrows thing, the way you guys do each episode, or is that just a sitcom thing that most sitcoms do
It's not
this way?
no other show does it. And I think what it was a Max, Dave, Jimmy thing. In the very first season, all four of us started out in theater. And so from the very beginning, we had, a similar vocabulary. There was a work ethic that was just familiar. And I think, there was a neuroses within the writing staff of, is that funny enough? Let's just have options. And so I think what happened was they were like, all right, do this and then try this. And we were like, what? And they're like, just do it. It's okay. If you mess up, you'll just do it again. And I'm like, really? Yeah, we'll do it 17 times if you have to, but we just need it on camera. And that was the beginning of it. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, they can do it. And then all of a sudden it was like, and now this is just how it's done at Will and Grace.
How was that to get back into when you guys came back a year and a half ago?
So hard. It was really amazing to realize just that the brain is a muscle, and that it really is just doing it. And, and it wasn't just memorizing. It was just the speed of everything. And, because so much of the musicality is about speed. And so you can, when we first came back, we would remember the line, but we wouldn't be up to the speed that was optimal, and so for a while it would be like, great, faster. Okay. And then we would go faster and we would mess up. And they'd be like, okay, try it again, and so it really was about just getting back up to speed and being like, okay, brain, this is what's required of you for the next few hours, and then you're done. Yeah, and then you're done.
Well, and then as amazing as the scene was with Robert Klein, and then just anytime all four of you are together, the end of the episode, you have a scene by yourself.
First time ever.
Was it the first time ever?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. But then my question, as I was writing these out, I was like, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like you were by yourself in that scene, given the context of who you're talking to? And
oh no, I definitely felt like my mother was there, and it was, it's bittersweet. I lost my mother 4 years ago to pancreatic cancer. She was gone in 31 days, and it was very, very traumatic. And she's in a mausoleum. And I read in the script, we go to the graveyard, and so I assumed I was going to like a grave. And when I walked on the set and I saw that, it literally, my mom is right down the street, and it looked, the bench, the thing where Debbie Reynolds' thing was on the wall was the same as my mother's. And I was, I got chills, and I was like, this isn't by accident. My mom's here right now with me. Yeah. Yeah.
And how many times did you go through a scene like that, especially when it's just you?
We did it twice.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah, and they didn't change anything. Yes, they don't drag things out. David Schwimmer is on the show this year, and he said that when they were doing Friends, they would work until 2 a.m. every shoot night, and we were done at 8:00 last night. So that just tells you how many takes they were doing, just over and 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 over, when we were on at the same time, we had heard about these like epic nights, and we were like, what are they doing? And they were like, you're with Jim Burrows. He wants to go home. Like on Fridays, he'll be like, I want to go play golf. Come on. We're like, all right, Jimmy, you do whatever you want to do.
Well, if any of you haven't been to a taping, you have to go because it's everything Debra just said. I've been
And
there
it's a
several
party
times.
also
It's a good
because
time.
there's a comic and there's music and people are dancing and it's crazy. It's really fun.
There's a bag of candy that usually gets passed around somewhere in there, maybe a turkey sandwich or something.
Yep.
It's really fun though. But it is amazing to watch all of you work because you're such pros. But you can also see just how comfortable you are, of course, after all this time working together. Are you still finding those surprises though, when they do pair you up in different things or different physical comedy things? Is there stuff that you guys are still just amazed that either you're doing or that they're writing for you?
I mean, what they're writing for us is it's always shocking. I mean, just I was telling him just this morning, we were reading a scene, and it's going to be just a Steadicam shot, all one shot, which we've never done before. And the description of what you see as the camera goes over each character, I was screaming. I was like, these people were on mushrooms. Because this is insane. And when you see the episode, you will know what I'm talking about because it will be so obvious that it's cray-cray. So yes, I'm always surprised at what comes out of their heads. I mean, I think that they are the most gifted writers around. But then yes, putting us into different configurations, it always changes it. I mean, how many scenes did I do with Megan in our office? But you put us into a water-filled shower. It's a game changer. It's like now what?
That was in my head. I was like, that's the one I was thinking of because that was amazing. But the show, a credit to the writers, anytime you guys have guest stars, and it's often, but in the best way, they bring so many great people on. How do you guys make that work as far as actors when somebody new's coming into play, whether you've known them for years or you've never met them before, but because you're working 4 or 5 days on an episode, how do you guys do that as actors, like to get the ball rolling quickly?
I mean, we come in and there's a table right on the set where we do our read through, and that's where we meet the guest stars, and it's like the first day of a play. It's like, hey, how you doing? All right, we're going to play together. This is going to be cool. What are we going to do? We're going to find out, And I think that we all feel it's just incumbent on us to make everybody feel really comfortable and relaxed and to let them know it's a process, because I think the first instinct is to think you've got to nail it the first day. And when they're throwing out everything, you can really tell them, no, you do not have to worry about that. That's going to be gone tomorrow. But tonight, Matt Bomer is on the show as a boyfriend. I know.
You can gasp.
Honey, the fact that he is gay, I can't even. I'm using this word intentionally. As this character, he is delicious. He is so funny. It's like I'm a huge fan of his. I've seen him in plays, but to see him in this role is amazing. And I do think that really is a testament to our casting director. She really is really mindful. I think during at the end of the last run, it was like, what triple A list person can we get? Can we get Cher? Can we get Madonna? Can we get Janet Jackson? Sure, why not? What are we going to have them do? Doesn't matter. Right? It was all about ratings, and I think that coming back, we all just felt like, look, we're coming. We're choosing to come back, and we want to do it for a reason. We want to tell stories that are meaningful. We also want to make people laugh, and we don't want to be distracted by anything other than the storytelling and whoever is going to best support the storytelling. And half the time it's someone that you recognize, and half the time it's someone you don't recognize. It's just whoever the best actor is for that part wins, and that's how it should always be. Yeah.
And when you have somebody like David Schwimmer come in, it's announced, and then, you know, I as a viewer, I'm like, I wonder how that chemistry is going to be.
I did too.
Of course, and it's wonderful, thankfully. But it also says a lot. I mean, I love what you're saying about Grace, because you're seeing her in this relationship, and I feel like we're seeing her differently than we've seen her in past relationships. Can you talk about that and why that's important to you?
Yeah. You know, one of the things, it took me a little while to feel like I found Grace again. I think it probably took like 3 full episodes for me. Like Eric was like, oh, the first time back, I was back. You know, I was like, yeah, because you're perfect. But, you know, the thing I kept thinking about and talking to the writers about was, okay, this is 11, 12 years later. Who is Grace now? You know, I am a completely different person than I was 12 years ago. And we need to see Grace mature. But we also have to be able to recognize the things that identify her to us, and, you know, the things about her that we love. And so it was like, what are those things, and what are the things that are going to change? And, you know, so we talked about Grace being a feminist, because that made sense, that she would be more vocal and that would be important to her, and she would have a voice. And then it was, okay, what kind of relationship will she have now? She has been through it. She was married, she was divorced. You know, she is now past breeding age. You know, so where is she in her head there? Like, she's never going to be a mother. How does she feel about that? At what point did she mourn that? You know, is she completely over it? Does she celebrate the choices that she's made in her life? And, you know, it was like, okay, she knows who she is now. She's successful, and she's not going to waste time. You know, I think that when we first met Grace, you know, there was a lot of talk about, well, the guy, am I going to find my husband, my guy, you know, and there was like a neurotic energy about it. It's like, and I think that it was important to show that as she becomes more of a woman, and an autonomous woman, that it's like, yeah, I want love in my life, but the right kind of love. I don't want to waste my time, because you know what? I've got beautiful friends in my life who fill me up, and I've got my job, and I love all the elements of my life. So it's got to be right this time. And so with David, you know, I love the fact that it's not perfect, and it's not easy. You know, it's bumpy. And, you know, when you have children involved and divorces involved, that's real life. It is. You have to navigate those things.
Yeah, but one of those moments is, I can't remember which episode, where he's about to say I love you and then can't do it and said, I'm not ready for this. And Grace is like, then we don't have anything to talk about. Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool, because I'd never seen Grace do that before.
I know.
That was great.
I liked it too.
That's great.
I was like, yes.
Go, Grace. We have some audience questions. Thank you, guys. Raphael, where's Raphael Duval? Hey. What is one of your biggest acting challenges that you have faced in your career, and how did you meet that challenge?
I think the hardest thing I've ever done was the most recent thing, which was a little tiny movie called Searching. And the entire film was seen only on screens, so on FaceTime and on computer screens. And so for most of the movie, the acting that I did with John Cho, they were incredibly high stakes, but I was never able to see his face. So I was acting into a computer, and he was in another room with a computer and an earbud, and we had GoPros attached to both computers. And so in one ear, I would hear the director say, okay, Debra, move your eyes up 2 inches, and then to the left 1 inch. Okay, that's his face. Keep your eyes on that spot. That's where you're going to be talking to him. You know, and then, you know, then I would hear John in the other ear, and I was like, what, and it was such a leap of faith. I mean, John and I were like, oh my God, are we just eggy? Like, is this at all working? And the director was a first-time director, 23 years old. Yeah. And, we just read the script and we're like, I just was like, I have no idea if this is going to work, but this kid is a visionary. He's going to be very important someday. And I just want to support him. I want to be a part of it. I don't care if it works or not. I just want to be a part of it. And we shot it. I shot 5 days and we won Sundance. Yeah. But that was really, really, really hard.
Okay. If you guys have not seen Searching, find it. I don't know if it's streaming or on DVD.
Yeah, it's out now.
Okay, because I saw it in the theater and just kind of went, because I was like, oh, I like John Cho, I like Debra, and we went, and I'm going to say twists and turns that will just blow your mind. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. It's so good, right? Yeah.
Oh, thanks. It's good, right?
It's good.
Yeah.
Searching, okay. Shauna, where's Shauna Jin? Hi, Shauna. How do you manage the work, career, and marriage family balance as a woman in the industry? How do you manage that?
Honey, 1 hour at a time. I'm divorced, and we are close friends and great co-parents. So I feel very blessed about that because I really still have a partner. I think the hardest thing is you really don't know how you're going to respond to motherhood until it happens to you. And in my case, I was shocked by it. I was shooting Will and Grace at the same time, so I was breastfeeding on the set and working full time. And then, and so I had him with me also. And it felt impossible at first. And then I realized, talking to other women, that everybody feels like it's impossible when you first do it. And it took me, I think, 3 years before I finally felt like, okay, I've got this. But I didn't feel like I had it for 3 years. And then I was like, okay, I know how to do this. I know the kind of mother I want to be. And the amount of time that I need to spend with my son in order for me to be the kind of mother I want to be. And so now I know how to make the choices. And luckily for me, it was very clear. I know that sometimes it's not clear. But I turned down a ton of work because it was just so clear. It was like, no, I've been working. I have this break. This is his time. Don't even call me. Don't even. I don't care. Don't even tempt me. That's his time. And I think now that we're filming all over the world, I think that makes it even more challenging now than perhaps 20 years ago, when it really was, Canada. I mean, like, in terms of where you're being away. But now I'm at a place where I'm lucky enough where I can say, I will only work in New York, which my last 2 shows, I said, one was based in LA, and I said, I can't do it unless it's in New York. And they're like, we'll move it to New York. And I was like, okay, that's how it has to be if you want me. And if that doesn't work for you, God bless. I totally get it. But this is just what I need for my life. Of course, that went like this because of Will and Grace. It was like, well, that show's already in LA, and so my son is in New York right now. And I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so coming back to Will and Grace, I had to say, the only way I will do this is if every parent-teacher meeting, every science expo, every, I'm there. And you have to figure out scheduling around it. Halloween, I'm there. I don't care if it's the night before filming, move filming. And I was like, if you can't do that, it's too much trouble. I get it. But this, for me, I've never been away from my son. And it was only supposed to be 10 episodes, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. They were like, oh no, we're doing it like Gilmore Girls. we're just going to do a very special little arc. And I was like, I can give you 10. And then we read the first episode out loud. We had not filmed anything yet. We read it out loud, and that night the president called all our agents and said, I want to fill it up. I want the whole season. And the next year. And I was like, whoa. I was like, wait, no, it's supposed to be 10 episodes. It's supposed to be 10 episodes. And then I had 100 people saying, well, I'd be like, I was like, I have to call my ex-husband. We've got to figure this out. Like, can we figure this out? You know, and luckily my ex-husband is also in the business, and we have figured it out. But there's pain constantly when you're a parent. Whether you're not your mother or your father, there's pain constantly because you're always feeling either I'm not with my child enough, or I'm not working enough and feeling filled up and you know, inspired in the way that only working can inspire me. And you can't give either one of them up. So 1 hour at a time. And there are going to be days when you're going to be like, I failed so miserably as a mother today. And then you're like, I'm going to do better tomorrow. That's all you can do.
And there is going to be a season 3 of Will and Grace. And how many episodes in season 3?
18.
Okay. So Will and Grace will be around for a while. That's amazing. Here's a question from Lisa Lynn. Where's Lisa Lynn? There she is in the back.
Hi.
She's asking about Jim Burrows, which you touched on a little bit, but the fact that Jim Burrows has directed every Will and Grace ever,
every
just so you
single
guys
one.
know, and I'm sure there's a luxury in that and a shorthand and everything, but how is it for you as an actor when you do go do other projects and when you kind of come home to working with Jim?
You know, I did another sitcom a lifetime ago, and we had different directors all the time, which is the way it normally is. And it's challenging because you have to immediately be like, okay, do we talk the same language? Are we going, you know, it's sort of like a forced marriage. And with Jim, you know, Jimmy is an icon. He's the best of the best of the best. And, you know, it's such a privilege to just, I mean, he's Papa Jimmy to my son, you know, and we are just safe in his hands. And he just is like, do your thing. And then I'll say something. So it really is a beautiful, safe little playground that we have going on over there. And that was also the other caveat. It's like, I won't do it unless Jimmy's directing it.
Okay, well, you guys, Will and Grace, Thursday nights on NBC. Thank you, Debra Messing.
Thank you, guys. This is awesome.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.